Councilmember Farmer, if you could drop some of your stacks down from the into the next square, definitely very well, would appreciate it.
You're down and over one on my screen. All I can think of is Shannon and her tutorial for how to do Zoom. And she's like, no food. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Shannon,
Well,
if you're watching.
On that note, it's 7 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting of the Lakewood City Council for Monday, July 20th to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Boki,
Present.
Councilmember Brandstetter,
Here.
Councilmember Farmer,
Here.
Councilmember Moss,
Here.
Councilmember Simpson,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Whalen,
Present.
Mayor Anderson.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Well, thank you. The first item of business is public comment. To participate in public comments, they will be accepted by mail, email, or by live virtual comment. We will attempt that if you follow the instructions. Send comments in advance by mail or email to Brianna Schumacher, City Clerk, at 6000 Main Street Southwest, Lakewood, Washington 98499, or B. Schumacher at cityoflakewood.us. Comments received up to 1 hour before the meeting will be provided to the City Council electronically. Madam Clerk, did we receive any comments?
Mayor Anderson, we have received no public comments this evening.
Now, you also have the opportunity to virtually comment. If you would like to provide live public comments or public testimony during the meeting, you will need to join the Zoom meeting as an attendee by calling the telephone number, dial 1-253-215-57, excuse me, 8782. I'll repeat that, 1-253-215-8782. It's on the screen, and enter the participant ID 868-7263-7273. That's the same participant ID if you come in directly on Zoom. Upon entering the meeting, please enter your name or other chosen identifier. Use the raise hand feature to be called upon during the public comment and or public hearing portion of the agenda. When you are unmuted, please provide your name and city of residence, such as Jason Whalen, Lakewood, Washington. Each speaker will be allowed 3 minutes to speak during the public comment section or at any public hearing. Outside of public comments and public hearings, all attendees on Zoom will have the ability to will continue to have the ability to virtually raise your hand for the duration of the meeting. However, you will not be acknowledged and your microphone will remain muted except for when you are called upon. So is anyone attempting to sign in, Madam Clerk? We'll give it a minute or two here. It's a cumbersome process.
Mayor Anderson, it does not appear that we have anyone signed or raising their hand to participate in public comments.
All right, I declare public comment closed. With respect to the consent agenda, we'll move motion number 2020-34 to new business.
Mr. Mayor, it does seem that one participant has a hand raised. A person identified as TS.
You are correct. That just came across. Would you like me to allow TS?
Yeah, go back and acknowledge the participant.
TS, you have been unmuted.
Hello, my name is Tanya Scott and I live in Lakewood. So I wanted to comment on when you get to the fireworks part of the agenda.
This is the time for public comment, so please leave your comment now.
So the proposal is that fireworks per code would only be allowed to be set off on July 4th between certain hours. That's the case? Is that the proposal? Rather than between July 3rd and July 5th?
Yes.
So because we have had fireworks going off before and after the 4th, and 2 nights ago we had like battling, dueling streets here by Fort Silicon Park, and we had some very loud ones around 11 o'clock last night. So I have 2 questions for the council. How would the city control fireworks that are being set off before and after that time frame that you are proposing? And how do taxes that are received from fireworks being purchased in Lakewood, and I'm assuming there are taxes on that, compared to the cost of emergency room, cost that of EMT, fire and rescue, animal control costs that are a result of problems that occur from fireworks? I personally would not want them in the city of Lakewood.
Although we seem to have lost your audio. I'm sorry, but if you're still able to hear us, your audio is not coming through, but I would invite you to send a comment to Ms. Schumacher, as city clerk, and she'll pass it on to the council. Just for your information, I don't recognize you as having participated before. Thanks for coming. This is not an interrogatory where we answer questions. It's your input. And I'd invite you to listen to our discussion, and I'm sure some of your questions will be addressed. So thank you for participating. And now public comment is closed. We will move to the consent agenda. I've, as indicated before, full motion number 2020-34 moved it to new business. Is there any other item which a member of the council wishes to have removed from the consent agenda? I entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. We now move to public hearings and appeals. This is the date set for a public hearing regarding proposed code amendments that would reduce the time during which certain fireworks are allowed from July 3rd through July 5th to specified hours on July 4th only. Ms. Wachter.
Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of the council, we had moved the date for the public hearing to tonight on the hope that we would be able to have people here live. And it sounds like it's been opened as though we are going to take the public testimony tonight in the Zoom format. In the alternative, the council has the option of setting it over once again with the understanding that we don't know when we will once again have a live public hearing. But this has been noticed and we have been steadily collecting input in whatever form it comes in, to the point where our city clerk, if she takes a call from somebody calling in who doesn't know how to email, she takes a message and has passed those on to you as well.
Right. Since I think the purpose of continuance till today has apparently been frustrated by COVID-19, as many things have. I would if somebody's interested in maintaining our desire for a public hearing, where people can be live participants, this is your opportunity to make a motion to push this out further. If not, we can move from Ms. Blochter to virtual public hearing.
I have a question here.
Mr. Whalen.
I just want to avoid confusion out there among members of the public. I think in response to tonight's noticed public hearing and the opportunity to submit comments, we received a number of written comments. And I know we don't want to preclude receiving additional comments. I just want to make sure we're clear. If we want to extend the public hearing yet another couple weeks, which I'm fine with, if we think that's helpful, and we make sure people know that their comment submitted to date will count and will be in the record. And if they wish to appear, should we ever have a in-person or additional Zoom hearing, that they're welcome to comment then as well. I just want to make sure we don't frustrate the purposes of the public comment period by the changing dates that we've had.
Deputy Mayor Whalen and members of the council, I would tell you that we have previously been clear, and we will continue to be clear, that this council wants as much public input as they can get. And we are keeping everything from the time we started this. I don't know to what degree we've had people waiting to speak to this. We've already heard from one person in the public comment segment tonight, but otherwise we've been receiving comments all along, and we understand that the council wants each and every one of those comments.
Well, then maybe what I would recommend, and I would move, if the mayor would like a motion on the table, to set this over for a Zoom public comment period or hearing, so that it's clear that people can call in and do as TS did tonight. And I appreciated the intent of her comments, so I would make that motion.
Until, do you have a date, Mr. Whalen?
Well, it's throw a dart at it, right? So again, to be clear, no matter what we decide this year won't have an impact on the regulation until 2022, not 2021, correct?
That's correct.
So I think we can do it and push it out to September. And as long as the public knows that, they won't feel like we're dragging our feet. It's just, the process is what it is, unfortunately. So I would say, Mayor, to answer your question, if we push it out, and I asked Mr. Caulfield what he thinks with his crystal ball gazing we can do in terms of in-person meetings, but I would say the first in-person meeting we could have maybe in September or August.
Yeah, September 8th is available.
So Mayor, September 8th is the date that we had discussed at your last meeting regarding this item, and that's the date that's also included in your packet. So if you wish to hold a virtual public hearing on September 8th, that is something that is very doable.
Is that your motion, Mr. Whalen?
That'll do it. Thank you.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Whalen, seconded by Mr. Bulkey, that we move the public hearing to Monday, September 8th, 20, and with the note from Ms. Wachter that comments which have been received previously will be retained as part of the record. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I would prefer that before we vote, that we allow anyone who has joined this meeting on Zoom with the intent of making a comment on this issue, that they be allowed to do so before we continue the hearing and close it out for today.
Agreed.
Okay, is there anyone who wishes to make public comment? The instructions are on your screen in a moment. If Ms. Schumacher would share them. You can dial in by telephone at 253-215-8782 and enter the participant ID 687263-2373, or directly with the Zoom app, enter the participant ID or meeting number 868-7263-2373. 2373. If you do, you will be allowed 3 minutes to speak. The topic is limited to the issue of limiting fireworks in the city of Lakewood. Is there anyone who is going to sign in here for a comment? Or we move on to continue in this?
Mayor Anderson, it appears that we have an individual identified as Fred Feller, whose hand raised to provide comments.
All right, would you please put the individual on? Mr. Feller, please identify yourself and your city of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Appreciate that. We live in Oak Brook area at 7023 95th Avenue Southwest. Lived in the area for 40 years. We have concerns about the type of fireworks, not just the time. For many years, we had a cedar roof and there would be fireworks shooting off and the debris landing on our roof. And whether we have a cedar roof or not, that still lands on the roof. So the type of fireworks is a concern. And also the general lack of restriction on the hours. People have them. If they can use them, then they use them random times where it's impossible of enforcement, days before and days after. Restricting the hours on to July 4th and some kind of ability to report violations after 11 o'clock and especially midnight would be really helpful. I don't know the feasibility of enforcement actually, but restricting them to that day I think would contribute to a reduction to public safety. I'm sure everybody has complained about the impact on human individuals as well as animals, but some additional restrictions in a primarily residential area, urban area would be great.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who's signed in? Raise their hand to speak. Well, I'm not going to declare the public hearing closed because we have a motion to continue it pending. Is there any further discussion on the motion to continue to September 8th?
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Mr. Simpson.
We're good? Thank you, sir. I think the extension is fine, but I would like to make a suggestion. We are going to be talking about a specific day for July between specific hours for the use of fireworks. And yet, as I read through my packet, there are a lot of people who are calling for a ban. And I'm wondering if we can't change the language of what we're going to be hearing about to also include a complete ban of fireworks in Lakewood as well. I leave it up to the rest of you to weigh in. Thank you.
To me, that's implicit. It's implicit in the discussion because we can always reject the recommendation, Mr. Simpson, or amend it and adopt whatever we feel appropriate. But I agree with you. Most of the comments coming in are supporting an outright ban as opposed to the staff's recommendation.
May I respond?
Sure. Yes.
Well, I agree that it's implicit. It's not stated. And the reason I'm saying this is that I have the feeling that some people think it's going to be the 4th. And I would like to be clear with the public that we are willing to entertain the motion or the idea that we will ban these things from the city rather than go to one day as opposed to the 3 we've had. I take your point, Mr. Deputy Mayor, but I sometimes think it might be in our best interest, since we've been working on this for quite some time, to be very clear with the public. Thank you.
Ms. Farmer, no, Ms. Moss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand the process and the comments that are being made, but to actually ban it, we're setting ourselves up to fail because we can't enforce it. And I think that was the reason we kind of came to this decision to have it just for the one day. But we're still open for discussion. But that was the reasoning. To ban it, we can't enforce it. So we're setting ourselves up for fail there.
Well, we can discuss the merits when we go down the road. Right now, the issue is whether we continue the hearing until September 8th.
And I'm open for that.
Ms. Farmer.
I support moving it to the 8th, and I wanted to clarify that we would hold the hearing even if we had to resort to a virtual hearing, that the hearing will happen on September 8th, period. And if we have that clarity, I'm good.
That's a plan. Mr. Branstad.
And Mr. Mayor, I am supportive of Mr. Simpson's suggestion that as we advertise the continued hearing to take place on the 8th, that it be directly stated that we're interested in comments on either the proposal to have it only on the July 4th and December 31st, because while we have been getting a good number of comments that say they'd prefer a ban rather than what the hearing is about, I'm concerned that folks that do not want a ban, but are sort of, okay, well, if it's only going to be on the 4th, are not being prompted to comment because they're willing to live with the proposal that's advertised that the hearing is about, but that they might have an opinion to present if they know that we're also would consider a ban at the outcome of this process, and that might cause them to not remain silent. But I support the September 8th as the next iteration of this hearing.
Call for the question on the continuation. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
The motion carries. We go to ordinance number 741, Madam Clerk.
Ordinance number 741, authorizing the acquisition of real property under threat of condemnation or by condemnation for roadway purposes, authorizing payment thereof from the city's general fund or from such other monies that the city may have available or attain for the acquisition, providing for severability and establishing an effective date.
Ms. Wachter and Mr. Williams.
I believe we have Mr. Williams here, and I believe we may also have Greg Vigerin. And the reason that Mr. Vigerin would be here is that condemnation typically relates to a project. And the project in this case is a road project. So questions about the condemnation process procedure, this particular case, Ken Williams is ready to answer. And if questions that are particular to the project, any details of that nature, obviously not in great depth, but how the condemnation relates to the project are for Mr. Vigerin. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Williams.
Okay, Mr. Vigerin, why don't you start and tell us what you need the property for?
Sorry, I've been having some connectivity issues. There are 3 properties. They're all, the project runs between Bridgeport Way and Lakewood Drive. The main focus was the intersection of Lakewood Drive and 100th to replace the signal. Also doing some sidewalk work along that stretch as well to fill in that gap. So the areas that we're looking at are 3 properties at the corner of Lakewood Drive and 100th. It's the Renta Center property on the northwest corner, the IHOP on the southeast corner, and the Hobby Lobby property, which actually comes out to 100th, and just a linear stretch of that property. And that's just a temporary easement. There's 2 permanent easements, one requested for Rent-A-Center, as well as one for IHOP, and then another temporary easement for the IHOP just for construction. And they're all pretty small. I think the Hobby Lobby property is about 4,500 square feet, and it's like 20 feet wide and runs a couple hundred feet long or thereabouts. The other neighborhood of a few hundred square feet right at the intersections.
And does anyone have any questions for Mr. Williams about the process? I have one. Where are we in the process of negotiating? And
we've actually got most of them negotiated. And then once this notice went out, a couple of the other property owners have reached back to Brian Fagerness, your right-of-way acquisition agent. And I'm hoping that next week, after you've passed this ordinance, Brian will get the rest of them wrapped up. A lot of times it just takes a little bit of a nudge.
Mr. Branstetter.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is for Mr. Vigorin and his comment that they're all of the properties on consideration are pretty small. And I see that in our packet that there's one that's 280 square feet, one 449 and one 617. But then there's one that's over 4,000 square feet that doesn't actually fit into my perception of being pretty small. It's like more than twice the size of my house. What's the significance of there being such a larger property that it's indicated that it's a Cayman tax parcel, whatever that means?
So if the question was directed at me, I missed the first part because my Zoom rebooted. So I heard just the end part in terms of the size. You were just wondering
what is this, the 4,000 square foot parcel? It seems larger.
Right. So, and I wish we had a map, but I don't have one handy. It's again, the Hobby Lobby property, it's an odd shape and it juts out to 100th Street, and that's the Cayman property. The Cayman is the owner. And it's between the Rent-A-Center and the Chick-fil-A, if you can visualize that. I think there's like a mailbox kind of near not too far from the road that I've used before. So that it's 20 feet deep and then it runs a couple of 100 feet long. So that's how we get the 4,000 square feet. And that's just a temporary easement to be able to basically get the work done. When the work's finished, it will all be in the right of way.
Okay, so this particular easement is not involving work that needs to be done for the signals at the intersection of Lakewood Drive and 100th, but it's actually to obtain some right-of-way for the work along that street segment from Bridgeport to Lakewood Drive.
That's correct. Yeah, it's strictly for the construction of that work. It's not at the intersection.
So just to clarify, is this a construction easement or the acquisition of right of way?
This is just basically a construction easement, a temporary easement.
So they don't lose the property.
Correct.
So what is the difference between temporary and permanent in respect to, I mean, we're going to build something on this sidewalk, I presume, or something. What's just the significance of saying temporary as opposed to permanent or construction?
Do you want me to answer that?
Yes.
Sure. Mr. Mayor. So a temporary easement is just like anything else, considered a rental of that particular space of land for a period of time. And I think in this case, the construction window is about 6 months, and Greg can correct me with that one. But they're just going to need it for a certain period of time in which they need to do the work within the right of way, but it allows them the opportunity to do that. So they're paid basically a rental value during that period of time for the use, and then it goes back to the property owner after that point in time.
So we're not actually going to construct anything on this 4,000 square feet.
That's correct. But you need to complete the construction on your property, your right of way.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Vigran or Mr. Williams? See no hands raised, and entertain a motion on ordinance number 741.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Simpson, seconded by Mr. Brandstetter, that we adopt ordinance number 741. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, let's call for the question. Well, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Now move to motion number 2020-34 under new business as a new motion. Madam Clerk.
Mayor, point of order, you skipped over unfinished business.
Oh, unfinished business. Is there any
There
other?
is, just for the record, there is none.
I knew that. So we now move to motion number 2020-34 as a new motion. Madam Clerk.
Motion number 2020-34, authorizing the execution of a contract with Living Access Support Alliance, LASA, to disperse $407,640 in coronavirus relief fund monies.
I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Brandstetter, seconded by Ms. Farmer, that we adopt motion number 2020-34. Any further discussion? Will all in favor please signify by saying
Aye.
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 kind of popcorn, but it counts. All opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. Now we move to reports by City Manager, Mr. Caulfield.
Thank you, Mayor Anderson, and good evening, Council. A handful of updates I'd like to report on this evening. The first off is that Association of Washington Cities earlier this afternoon facilitated a conversation with the governor and the State Department of Health, where the governor wished to provide an update as far as what's happening specific to COVID-19 and just providing cities and towns in Washington State an update. Information, and I'll forward you a copy of the PowerPoint presentation that was presented, but the governor focused on the latest infection trends, hospitalization, mortality rates in both Eastern and Western Washington. Of course, the big concern is that the number of COVID cases has been increasing quite rapidly, actually exponentially. One of the things that the governor did state is that something needs to be done to reduce transmission rates statewide by about 33%. That's being perhaps interpreted that we might have to reduce back from our current phase 2, but certainly in terms of moving to phase 3 anytime soon is not going to occur until there is a significant decline in COVID-19 cases. Right now, it appears that a lot of the COVID-19 cases are being driven, believe it or not, kind of by the younger population, particularly those in the ages of 20 to 29. And so health department experts at both the state level and local level are trying to figure out how to reach out to that part of the population to try and explain to them the importance of practicing social distancing, wearing face masks, and things along those lines. What the governor did ask in terms of assistance from local government is just continued cooperation with our respective health departments, as well as helping them, regarding tracking and any investigations that they might need to do to try and get at the root of some of these significant outbreaks, and also just promoting, and which is something that we have been doing and will continue to do, but also just promoting being safe, for example, wearing face coverings and social distancing and regularly washing your hands and some of the common sense activities like that. And then lastly, the governor wished to communicate to cities and towns, and I know this is something that you're very familiar with and something that the city of Lakewood continues to take a strong position on, is he too hopes that Congress will take action here in the next few weeks before they adjourn for their August recess to provide federal stimulation money to help local and regional governments. And right now, I think I'll remain cautiously optimistic that something will occur there. The latest in the news is that the president is planning on meeting with congressional leadership, and the number that's being thrown around as part of the next federal stimulus package is about $100 billion for local governments, which if we did the math and it gets allocated proportionally based on, for example, population, long story short, that would work very, very well for the city of Lakewood for both 2020 and 2021. But again, more to come on that. Regarding the CARES Act funding that we have received that we cannot use to either supplant or backfill lost revenues, but we are making it available to both our business community and, of course, the significant safety net that we have in place. Our Social and Human Services Agency is moving forward. Late last week, our team launched a dashboard that shows the progress of that. We're moving very, very quickly, and actually thank you to your actions this evening to try and get that money out to the front lines as soon as possible. I'd specifically like to call out and thank LASA for their assistance in stepping up to the plate and being a true leader in the community and helping those with assistance with rent and with utility payments. So a great partnership there. Likewise, the funding for a number of businesses is moving forward. Long story short, our goal and objective is to try and get that money out there by the latter part of August. So within the next 30 to 40 days or so. One thing I do want to report on, you might recall that we did receive $350,000+ in CDBG monies to be used for businesses with low income employees. The council established a forgivable loan program. To date, we've only received 7 applications for that. And the feedback that we're getting from the businesses is while they certainly appreciate everything that the council is doing here, there's resistance or reluctance for them for taking on debt, even though we've explained to them that it's probably going to be forgiven at some time in the future. But they're reluctant to do that. And perhaps at your next study session next Monday, I may be bringing back a recommendation for council to perhaps consider changing that from a forgivable loan program over to a grant program, which again, we have found very, very successful with the general CARES Act dollars that the state has provided to us. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that, and more to follow in the near future. I'd like to commend our senior center team led by Elizabeth Scheide, who applied for some CARES Act money through Pierce County in support of the senior center, which is operated out of a Pierce County building. And long story short, she and her team have been awarded $7,000 to do, among other things, a deep clean of the senior center so that when the seniors come back, they'll be in a very safe and secure environment. So again, I want to recognize them and of course, thank Pierce County for their assistance there. Well, we're kicking off another comprehensive plan amendment cycle for 2021. Applications have been placed on the website and we are beginning community outreach. The time period for private property owners to submit begins on August 1st and ends on August 28th. We will then bring that back to the City Council for your review if those are items that you wish to move forward with. Again, just want to let you know we're kicking that off. Likewise, we are now accepting applications for 2021 Human Services grants, and that application deadline is the middle of next month, August 22nd. And again, we'll keep you appraised of how that is progressing. Our finance team is well in the midst of the 2019 annual audit, which of course every year we do fantastically well there. And the state auditor's office, as is their practice, has scheduled with our team an entrance conference that's scheduled for this Wednesday at 11 a.m. And if any member of the council or the mayor or deputy mayor wishes to sit in on that, please let us know, and we'll get that accommodated. So please either let myself or the city clerk know. On the Wahop Lake front, the alum treatment, the second treatment of alum occurred last week. I think, as you know, the first treatment went fantastically well. The testing has come back very, very positive. Likewise, the second treatment last week rather, went very, very well. And so we're going to wait a couple of weeks and then do some testing. And again, we're not expecting any issues or problems there. But again, we'll keep the council appraised. At this point in time, if everything goes according to plan, that should be it. 2 applications. However, if another application does need to be done later this fall, of course, we'll certainly keep you apprised. We'll then continue to monitor it. And then if things continue to go as they're going right now, the next time that we'll be coming back to this body to provide an alum treatment could be anywhere from 3 to 10 years or 5 to 7 years, somewhere within that block of time. And if you haven't been down to the lake to see it, it does look a whole lot better than it has in the past. And you might have seen some notifications of other algae outbreaks in other parts of the county, but for the first time in a long time, there has not been one in Wahop Lake. And actually, I don't know if he's still on, but I'd like to tip my hat to our engineering services manager and stormwater manager, Greg Vigorin, and his team for his leadership in this area. Mr. Vigorin also asked me to pass along that him and his team continue to work with American Lake. You might recall last year, the treatment of American Lake to control the milfoil was extremely successful. At the same time, they have identified some spots of milfoil that need to be addressed. And the Lake Management District, which has been up and running now for over a year, is going to be addressing that. At the same time, another invasive aquatic plant called the curly leaf pondweed has been found in American Lake, and they're hoping that this new application to address the milfoil will also address this new invasive species. If not, then the city will take the lead in applying for a future state grant to come back perhaps next summer, coupled with the Lake Management District and their assessments to further address that. But all around, very, very successful on both Wahop and American Lake in terms of protecting and preserving our environment there. Our Parks and Recreation Director, Mary Dodsworth, one of the things, she oversees a number of park assets. And a couple of ones that sometimes kind of fall below the radar are our community gardens. And we have 2 in Lakewood that we partner with. One is on 112th, which is located behind the First Baptist Church, and folks can go out there and they can rent a plot, and we work with some community partners there. The other is over at Springbrook Park, and we work with Springbrook Connections. And again, there's an opportunity if people want to have a little plot of property over there. And then also the webpage that we've created to alert people to this also includes resources countywide in terms of how people can become more involved in creating community gardens in their community. So I'll provide a link to that, but it is something that is now on our Parks and Recreation website as a resource for the community. Mayor, I apologize if this is something that you reported out last week, but we did learn from Pierce Transit that they have decided not to move forward with a ballot initiative for some additional funding and support of services. You might recall last year that was a conversation that Pierce Transit was doing in terms of expanding services within their service area. But just given the current turbulent times from both an economic and a pandemic standpoint, it is something that they have at this point in time, they being the board of which Mayor Anderson is a member, has decided to table at this point in time. So they will not be putting that on the November ballot. Mayor Anderson, I do want to say that the staff over there had some very, very positive comments to say about you in your regards to your role and your leadership on the board. So just wanted to pass that on as well. Another item on parks, you might see some of our parks getting a little brown. And here's what we're doing. I think as the councils know, I issued a directive to try and control cost as well as we can. Our Parks Department has been kind of limiting and backing off some of the areas of irrigation. Areas that we're not backing off are, for example, some of our major ball fields and things like that. Likewise, our gardens and making sure that the trees are properly taken care of. But some of our open spaces are not getting as much water as they typically do. That's expected to save us about $20,000 or $30,000. It's only for one summer, and but at this point in time, again, we're just limiting and trying to control our costs in that endeavor. So again, if you see a little bit of browning of some of our parks, that's why that's occurring. And then lastly, our Park and Rec Director met with representatives of the Nisqually tribe last week, and this is a continuation of a partnership and a discussion that we've had with them, going back to a joint meeting that this body had with their tribal board about 2 years ago now. And they continued the discussion about placing some amenities out there. Right now, the Angle Lane project is underway, and so the tribe has some interest in providing some benches and seating areas as part of the new plaza out there at both by the off-leash dog park, as well as down by the parking. It is something that they're willing to provide in terms of material, but also have it enhanced by their own tribal artists to capture their history, given that this is their original, their homeland. So they plan on inscribing and engraving native symbols, words, poetries, or even stories. So want to just give you an update there. Also, we continue to have discussions with them about other opportunities to partner with the Nisqually tribe, with, of course, hopefully someday in the future, the renovation of the H-Bar in terms of some kind of facility down there, including something for the Nisqually tribe. But again, just wanted to let you know those conversations continue and are very, very positive. So with that, that is my report, Mayor.
Questions for Mr. Caulfield?
Yeah, I have a question, if I could. I'll find my little hand button here.
Mr. Volkey first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of questions, John. Given the times we're in, and we just had a budget update, but what are your thoughts about the timing of keeping us in the loop on the costs and the revenue situation? I know you provide us with some information when you can via email, but publicly, when do you think the next update will be?
So right now, Councilmember Boki, I'm planning on bringing back second quarter financial report, which is scheduled for your work session on September 14th. And I know second quarter, why is it coming in September? And the reason being is because there's a lag in the collection of our revenues. Right now, we only have revenues through April. And so we still have another 2 months to go. We're beginning to develop the 21-22 biennial budget. However, it's a little different this year in that, we potentially have a huge hole. Right now, I'm counting on Congress stepping up and providing that backfill. So I'll literally be waiting until the last moment before I make any recommendations on any reductions in services or cuts. And I provided that to you about a month ago or so in terms of what the list. I mean, it wouldn't be everything on that list, but that's the level of impact that given the loss of revenue to our general fund. But at this point in time, really the critical path item is what's Congress going to do. I don't have any updates in terms of any changes in lost revenue or projected lost revenue for both 20 and 21. It's still in about the $5.7 to $6 million a year range, which is about 15% of our general fund. And so that, again, that's based on current trends through about April. We need more. So on September 14th, I'll have even better information for you.
Thank you. Could you update us to the extent that you can on the municipal judge situation?
Yeah, it was today, the municipal judge. So that recruitment closes on Friday, July 24th. And then from there, our HR director will take the lead and going through the hiring process as we do with any position here in the city. The position is, if you haven't seen the advertisement, it is posted on our website. So the position is to fill the current term of our current judge, which runs through December 31st, 2021. And so it's a full-time position. However, we are clear that beginning on January 1st, 2022, which would be another 4-year term, the beginning of the next 4-year term, the position goes to a .8 position. And the reason being is because the city of University Place has made the decision that they are going to go back to the county on January 1st of 2021. However, they're still on the hook for their portion of the judge for 2021. Also, I do plan on, having several interview panels, including probably a community panel to interview the candidates. And so once we have, and of course, DuPont and Steilacoom will be intricately involved in that, since they are a contract agency and they have to appoint their judge as well. And then once we have a recommended candidate, that position is brought forward to this body for your confirmation, if you will, of my recommendation, if you so desire.
And you're expecting that probably maybe around first week in September?
Looking at I would say maybe probably middle of September, council member. I'd like to do it sooner, but just to manage expectations.
Okay.
That's about where we are. I've been talking with our current judge, and what I'd actually like to do, she'll be leaving us on October 1st, is I'd actually, in a perfect world, it would be great to have them together for 3 or 4 days. And so Judge Adams and I have spoken about that. And so that's also part of our our planning process here.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Wayland.
Thank you. I just have a question, John, about the contract for the additional work at the pavilion in the park, the small bid job for the warming kitchen area and the bathrooms. Is that still going forward this summer?
It is, Deputy Mayor Whalen. And I know right now they're working through some contracts with a couple of local contractors.
Okay. So anticipated before summer's end, do we think, or October-ish?
I hope so, Deputy Mayor.
Okay,
Yep.
very good.
We just got to come to an agreement on price, and then the easy part is actually building it. The most difficult part is, getting a fair price for the work.
Got it. Because there's a chunk of concrete out of the pathway there that's been taken out. And that was, I know, for the sewer extension. I think that work's done. I was just wondering when that concrete will get replaced. Something to look at.
Mr. Branstetter.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Caulfield, with respect to Wahop Lake, as we do this next set of after treatment testing, is that testing going to hopefully provide us with enough data to submit to the health department to ask them to remove the toxic algae warning signs that are in the park around the lake?
Actually, Councilmember Branstetter, I think we can just remove the signs ourselves. It's our lake, it's our property, and we're not having algae outblooms. So pretty confident that we can take them out now. I think actually I have talked to our Park and Rec director about that, and we're just kind of waiting for the current alum treatment to kind of settle down, and then we plan on pulling them out.
Well, if we could do that after we get the next set of test results, that would create a much more appealing look for the lake to do that.
Agreed.
And then the next question I had is, as you look into, based on what the governor said and the projected progression of phases, is a national night out series of events on October 8th still looking as a doable thing that we want to, as a city, sponsor, those sorts of gatherings around the community?
Actually, Councilmember Branstetter, Chief Zaro and I were talking about that this morning, and right now we're at the point, since we would have to begin planning for that in about 2 or 3 weeks, that highly unlikely we will be doing National Night Out on October, whatever that first Tuesday is.
October 8th was the suggested date as the alternative.
Yeah, at this point in time, the answer is no. And the reason again being is because there's no end in sight when we're going to get to phase 3, never mind phase 4. And again, we have to do the planning beginning next month.
So is that true for Truck and Tractor Day, which is in that same window of time?
Most likely, Councilmember Branstetter, that's correct.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Farmer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. John, I was curious if you were able to find out anything about the business that used to be a KinderCare almost on the corner of Phillips and Silicon Boulevard. They've been, I've been super pleased to see that they've been cleaning the interior and the exterior, and they striped the parking lot this week. And so I'm just excited that there's somebody in there, that it's sat vacant for a number of years. So I was just curious if you'd heard anything.
I don't have anything specific. I know there's some work going on there. I know I provided the council an update with what we had. I'll see if I have any other additional information.
Okay,
I think the property changed hands about a year ago, if I recall, but don't hold me to that.
Okay.
So I have one on our CARES grants program. How many applicants have there been, ballpark?
I'd have to go I don't have off the top of my head, Mayor. I'd have to go check the dashboard. I was actually just kind of perusing through them. I didn't look at the number.
Is it fully subscribed?
I don't know, Mayor, offhand.
All right. Any further questions? We'll move to council member comments. Ms. Farmer.
I am very glad to see that the Silicon Road project is almost done. Super excited for what that means for the area, but also selfishly for me in trying to get out of my neighborhood. I very much remember Councilmember Branstetter almost gleefully saying that the only way out of my neighborhood would be via the footbridge to Kobayashi Park. And several days over the past month or two, it's kind of been that way. But and then the construction on my side of Oak Brook versus Councilmember Boki's side of Oak Brook has been going really well. The construction crews, several days, there's been an all-female flagger and sign crew, and it's just it's been great to see the work and everything that's going on there, and super excited to see our dollars at work. Next week, I hope to have an update on the sex offender policy board that I've been sitting on. I also sit on a subcommittee around citing and public engagement, and some other things that I'm still grappling with. It's a very big issue. I am incredibly impressed by the depth and the breadth of the people who sit on the policy board and everything that they're bringing to the process, and the passion by which they make their very reasoned arguments. And so it's been an amazing process, and I hope to have more for you next week. That's it for me.
Mr. Branstetter.
I am fine, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Bulkey.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. I'll second the remarks of Councilmember Farmer that I'm very pleased with the progress that's being made on the Onyx Zircon. I know it's taking a while, but there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of digging going on and gravel all over the place, and they are starting to put some concrete in. So, but it is quite a project. And I have not seen Veterans Drive. I heard that it's going along, and somebody asked me today at work, "What are you guys doing, tearing it all up?" And I said, well, you're going to wait a while. It'll be into next year. But I'm glad to see we're making progress at a difficult time for everybody. So I hope our COVID numbers start to look better, especially here in the city, and that people are following all the rules. But hopefully everybody stay well.
Ms. Moss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I ditto on the construction. You know, what's really interesting is when I go out and there's a long line of cars because of it's one lane in some areas, everybody's just patient. Nobody's getting up. When I was there, nobody was getting upset and because of it. So I was glad to see that, but the construction, and it's going to be really nice when it's done. I think everybody's going to be pleased. So happy to see that. I wanted to share that I did go to the farmer's market on Friday night, and I tell you, it was quite interesting. It was well attended. The comments are they like it, they're in that location, and they prefer it on a Friday evening. So I wanted to pass that on. Even my neighbors come by and holler, Mary, let them know that we like the farmer's market, don't change it. So just so you know. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Simpson.
I'm good, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Whalen.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to comment on a couple of things. I had occasion to go out to Wagga Lake as well this weekend after the treatment. And, you know, I'm no expert, but it looks pretty darn clear to me. I think it frankly looks better than I've seen it in many a moon. And I spent a lot of time running around that lake. So I appreciate the work on that. Wanted to update you a little bit on the Economic Development Board. As you know, we're an investor member as the city of Lakewood. The board is working on their 5-year work plan because as we have a budget, the EDB also has a budget, and it starts 2021 through 2025. And interestingly enough, after a couple of meetings, really intensive, significant meetings on behalf of the EDB board and staff and all of the investor members, the board stepped up to respond to many issues within the community, not just with regard to COVID, but also with regard to the community's concerns expressed about racism in our society. And they've changed the work plan systematically to address as best we can as a business community those issues. And that's going to include a better job of promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion in the attraction of new members to the EDB board and try to eliminate some of the barriers that perhaps have been systemically in place that eliminated some small minority-owned businesses from being members of the EDB board. And so those are going to be great steps in the right direction. So more to follow on that, but the collaboration with key stakeholders is, as a matter of policy, now going to include representatives of the public and private sector entities in order to develop enhanced support for minority business enterprises. So, you know, good progress that's being made. And I think from the business community, that's a really interesting and welcome sign. So I wanted to let you know about that and open it up. If you have any questions, I'd be happy. I'll forward, John should have a copy of that. If you don't, city manager, I'll send that to you and you can certainly circulate to the council. So if they have comments as you and I go through the process of helping finalize the work plan, it'll just be a better document. So that's all I had on that. Stay safe, mask up. We have to set the example. Appreciate it. Let's stay out of reverse back to phase 1 if we can help it. Our business community can't handle it. Thank you.
So I have been out by Veterans Drive. There's a lot of curb that's gone in and it's well on its way. Mr. City Manager, I don't know the details. I got a somewhat cryptic voicemail today that there's some problems, however, we're at a C-store down toward Lake City area with cut through traffic and people not treating the owner well, trying to avoid, and the indication was somebody had called the police department about it, but it's trying to avoid the detour.
Where's that at, Mayor?
It's down close to the park. Ms. Walker has her hand up.
Yes, that information just came to us during the executive leadership team today, and I believe Weston Ott from our Public Works Department has reached out to the project manager. The question that came to us was, do we need to alert the police? And we opted to start with just reaching out to the folks that are out there and finding out what's going on first. And that is our most recent update on that, but we will follow up, obviously, finding out how that conversation went.
Yeah, it sounds like there's some turmoil in the neighborhood about it. So, thank you. Speaking of local minority-owned businesses, I reposted it, but if you haven't seen Eric's Heroes piece on Ham Hock Jones food truck here in Lakewood, it's outstanding, and it's got a lot of it's great food. I participated in a Association of Defense Communities FOAC meeting last week. It's the Federal Outreach and Advocacy kind of a lobbying policy deal. From the folks that live back there on the Hill, when you're thinking about what best conjecture is that our Congress is going to spend an additional $1 trillion that they don't have by the end of July, before the August recess, that Mitch McConnell and the Republicans in the Senate have essentially rolled, and it's an election year. And so the question is, how much more than $1 trillion would it be? And as Mr. Caulfield indicated, most proposals include some direct aid to municipalities. But that remains to be seen. Who knows what comes out of a conference committee? Although what comes out of Olympia is on a cut out of the local share, it should go to local governments. Remember, we got about a third of or what was it, 1.7 million approximately. If we got our per capita 45 of the 45%, we would add about more like 4 million, 5 to 5 million. They're going to release $100 million for rental assistance. That's going to come out at the county level. County will have probably between 10 and $11 million of federal CARES money through the state for additional rental assistance in Pierce County. But before you get too excited about it, that would probably pay 1 month's rent for 1/3 of the people who are eligible. That's all I have. Is there anything else to come before the council? Seeing none, thank you for being here tonight. We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Hey.